In the heart of the bustling desert city of Timbuktu, Amina's beauty was like no other. Her bald head gleamed under the hot Malian sun, attracting men from all corners of the city and beyond. Traders, warriors, and noblemen alike would stop in their tracks, mesmerized by her ethereal presence. Rumors spread that her scalp held magical properties. Those who touched it would gain unimaginable wealth and power. Men, captivated by these whispers, sought any means to get close to her. But Amina lived a life of isolation, knowing the truth behind her allure. The curse that had plagued her family for generations was her darkest secret. Every man who touched her scalp became her eternal slave, bound to serve her against their will. Each day she carried the burden of knowing that her beauty was a trap, leading men to their doom. She vowed never to let another man fall victim, but resisting their advances was growing harder with each passing day. One fateful day, a wealthy merchant named Omar arrived in Timbuktu, his caravan laden with exotic goods from faraway lands. He was a man of great ambition, known for his ruthless business dealings. Upon hearing the tales of Amina's mysterious power, he immediately grew obsessed with meeting her. His friends warned him of the dangers, but Omar dismissed their concerns. He was a man who believed in controlling his own destiny. Determined, Omar orchestrated a grand gesture. He sent Amina lavish gifts, hoping to win her favor. Though Amina was wary of his intentions, she couldn't deny the luxury he offered. Yet, deep down, she knew the real reason Omar sought her out. The same reason all men did: the promise of power. Amina resolved to keep her distance, but Omar's persistence was unlike anything she had encountered before. Amina often reflected on the origins of the curse that bound her. It had begun centuries ago when her ancestor, Fatima, angered a powerful sorceress. Fatima had been as beautiful as Amina, and men flocked to her as they did now. But Fatima's heart was full of pride, and in her arrogance, she rejected the sorceress's son, humiliating him in front of the village. In retaliation, the sorceress placed a curse on Fatima's lineage, ensuring that any man who desired her descendants would become enslaved by their beauty. Since then, every daughter born in Amina's family carried the curse, their beauty both a blessing and a weapon. Amina had watched her own mother suffer, and she feared the same fate awaited her. The curse was ancient and powerful, and she had no idea how to break it. Omar was not one to be deterred easily. After Amina rejected his initial advances, he became even more determined to possess her. His desire for power and control grew with every passing day. He devised a plan to get close to her during one of the city's many festivals. With his wealth, he sponsored the largest event of the season, knowing that Amina would attend. Dressed in his finest robes, Omar approached Amina with the confidence of a man who always got what he wanted. He bowed before her and offered his hand, asking for just one dance. Amina, caught off guard by his charm and persistence, reluctantly agreed. As they danced, she could feel his desire burning through his gaze. The curse loomed over her like a shadow, and she knew she had to escape before it claimed yet another victim. As the festival came to an end, Amina managed to slip away from Omar's advances. She sought refuge in the home of Zaina, the village elder and a woman of great wisdom. Zaina had been Amina's confidant since childhood and knew the burden of the curse well. When Amina recounted her encounter with Omar, Zaina's face darkened with concern. "You must be careful, child," Zaina warned. "The curse is growing stronger, and Omar is more dangerous than he seems. His greed will lead him to do whatever it takes to possess you. You cannot let him get close." Zaina handed Amina a small amulet, blessed by the ancestors for protection. But even as Amina clutched the amulet, she feared it wouldn't be enough to keep Omar at bay. That night, Amina was haunted by a vivid dream. In it, she stood alone in a vast desert, her bald head shining under the scorching sun. Men appeared from every direction, their eyes filled with desire and greed. One by one, they fell to their knees before her, licking her scalp and pledging their eternal servitude. As their numbers grew, Amina felt an overwhelming sense of dread. She could not stop them, nor could she save them. When Amina awoke, her heart was pounding. The dream felt like a warning, a premonition of the fate that awaited Omar if she did not act soon. But what could she do? The curse had never been broken, and no one knew how. Despair washed over her as she realized that her beauty was a prison, and there seemed to be no escape. Omar's obsession with Amina deepened after their encounter at the festival. He could think of nothing else but her and the power he believed her scalp held. Each day, he sent more gifts to her home, hoping to win her favor. His friends noticed the change in him, warning that his pursuit of Amina was dangerous. But Omar was blinded by his ambition. Determined to claim her for himself, Omar began to study the ancient legends surrounding Amina's family. He consulted local shamans and wise men, hoping to uncover a way to break the curse. But every inquiry led to the same conclusion: Amina's beauty came with a price, and no man who licked her head could ever escape his fate. Despite her best efforts to avoid him, Amina found herself drawn to Omar. His charm and persistence wore down her defenses, and one evening, under the soft glow of the desert moon, she agreed to meet him in secret. As they sat together, Omar gently brushed his fingers across her scalp, and Amina shivered with both fear and desire. Before she could stop him, Omar leaned in and pressed his lips to her bald head. Amina felt a strange energy course through her body as the curse took hold. In that moment, she knew there was no turning back. Omar had become her slave, bound to her for eternity unless she could find a way to break the ancient spell. As soon as Omar's lips touched her scalp, a surge of power rippled through Amina's body. She pulled away, her heart pounding with terror, knowing the curse had been activated. Omar looked at her, confused, his eyes glazing over as the magic began its work. His once fiery ambition dulled, and a strange, quiet devotion settled over him. He stared at her with a deep, unsettling reverence. "Omar, no," Amina whispered, backing away. But it was too late. He reached for her hand, kneeling before her like a loyal servant. He was no longer the confident man she had once known. He had become another victim of the curse, bound to her forever. Despair flooded her as she realized she had failed to protect him. In the days that followed, Omar remained at Amina's side, unable to leave her. He obeyed her every command, tending to her needs with eerie devotion. Amina, consumed by guilt, tried to release him, but the curse was unbreakable. She tested its limits, commanding him to leave her presence, but Omar would always return, drawn by the invisible bond that now linked them. Desperate, Amina sought help from Zaina, the village elder. "The curse is stronger than I imagined," Amina said, her voice filled with anguish. "Omar is trapped, and I don't know how to free him." Zaina listened carefully, but even her wisdom could not offer a solution. "The curse has claimed him," Zaina said gravely. "But you must not lose hope, child. There may still be a way to break it." As time passed, Omar's devotion to Amina only grew. He became obsessed with pleasing her, anticipating her every desire. Though Amina resisted, she couldn't help but notice how easy it was to manipulate him. His wealth and influence were at her disposal, and she began to rely on him more than she intended. Yet each time she looked into his eyes, she saw the hollow reflection of the man he had once been. The townspeople started to whisper. They had seen how Omar, the once powerful merchant, had become a shadow of his former self, completely consumed by his love for Amina. Rumors spread like wildfire, with many speculating about the nature of Amina's hold over him. Some believed she had used dark magic to control him, while others thought the stories about her cursed beauty were true. Just when Amina thought things couldn't get worse, another suitor arrived in Timbuktu, a powerful warrior named Idris. He had heard the legends of Amina's beauty and believed that if he won her favor, he would become invincible in battle. Unlike Omar, Idris was brash and arrogant, confident in his ability to seduce Amina. At first, Amina tried to avoid him, but Idris was relentless. He pursued her with the determination of a man who had never known failure. Amina feared for him, knowing that the curse would claim him just as it had Omar. But Idris was not easily discouraged. He viewed Amina's resistance as a challenge and vowed to conquer her heart, no matter the cost. One evening, Idris cornered Amina in the marketplace, his eyes gleaming with desire. "You cannot hide from me forever," he said, his voice low and threatening. "I have come to claim what is mine." Amina stood her ground, her heart racing. "You don't know what you're asking for," she warned, her voice trembling with fear. But Idris was undeterred. He reached out to touch her scalp, his fingers brushing against her smooth skin. Amina flinched, pulling away just in time. "You must leave, Idris," she pleaded. "If you touch me, you will be bound to me forever." But Idris laughed, dismissing her words as the ramblings of a frightened woman. He leaned in closer, determined to make her his own. Before Idris could touch her, Omar appeared out of nowhere, his eyes wild with jealousy. "Stay away from her!" Omar shouted, stepping between them. Idris sneered, amused by Omar's desperation. "You think you can stop me?" he mocked. "You're nothing but a weak merchant, blinded by your infatuation." But Omar was no longer the man he once was. The curse had transformed him into Amina's protector, and he would do anything to keep her safe. Without hesitation, he lunged at Idris, and the two men clashed in a violent struggle. Amina watched in horror as the fight escalated, knowing that it was all her fault. The curse had not only enslaved Omar, but it was now tearing apart the lives of those around her. After a brutal fight, Omar managed to overpower Idris. The warrior lay defeated, his pride shattered. But even in his weakened state, Idris refused to back down. "You think you've won," he spat. "I will never stop until Amina is mine." But before he could rise, something strange happened. As Idris looked at Amina, his eyes glazed over, and he collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Amina gasped in shock. The curse had struck again, binding Idris to her in the same way it had enslaved Omar. She had not even touched him, yet the power of the curse was growing stronger. Amina realized with dread that she was losing control. The curse was spreading, and soon, it would claim every man who came near her. Fearing that the curse was spiraling out of control, Amina returned to Zaina for guidance. "The curse is spreading," Amina said, her voice filled with panic. "I didn't even touch Idris, but now he's bound to me, just like Omar." Zaina frowned, deep in thought. "The curse was never meant to be contained," she said slowly. "It was designed to punish those who seek power and control." Amina listened intently as Zaina continued. "There may be only one way to break the curse," she said, her voice heavy with the weight of her words. "You must confront the source of the curse, the sorceress who placed it on your family. Only she can undo what has been done." Amina's heart sank. The sorceress had lived centuries ago. How could she possibly find her? Despite the overwhelming odds, Amina knew she had no choice but to try. She could not allow the curse to destroy any more lives. With Zaina's blessing, she set out on a perilous journey to find the ancient sorceress. Her only clue was a set of cryptic instructions passed down through generations of her family. Omar, still bound to her by the curse, insisted on accompanying her. Though Amina felt guilty for dragging him further into danger, she knew she couldn't leave him behind. Together, they set off into the desert, following the faint trail of legends that spoke of a hidden temple where the sorceress descendants still practiced their dark magic. The journey through the desert was grueling. The scorching sun beat down on them during the day, and the freezing winds chilled them at night. Omar, though enslaved by the curse, proved to be a loyal companion. He tended to Amina's needs, fetching water and building fires, even as his mind remained clouded by his devotion to her. As they traveled deeper into the desert, Amina began to have strange dreams. In these dreams, she saw the faces of the men who had fallen victim to the curse over the centuries. They called out to her, their voices filled with sorrow. "Save us," they whispered. "Free us from this torment." Amina awoke each morning with a renewed sense of purpose. She had to break the curse, not just for herself, but for all the men who had been enslaved by it. After weeks of travel, Amina and Omar finally reached their destination, a crumbling, ancient temple hidden deep within the desert sands. The air around the temple crackled with dark energy, and Amina could feel the weight of centuries of magic pressing down on her. She hesitated at the entrance, unsure of what awaited them inside. But Omar, ever devoted, urged her forward. "We've come this far," he said quietly. "There's no turning back now." Together, they entered the temple, the darkness swallowing them whole. Inside, they found a labyrinth of tunnels, each one more ominous than the last. The walls were etched with strange symbols, and Amina could feel the presence of something ancient and powerful watching them. At the heart of the temple, they found her, a young woman, dressed in black robes, her eyes gleaming with otherworldly knowledge. "I've been expecting you," the woman said, her voice soft but commanding. "You seek to break the curse that binds your family." Amina nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. The woman, who introduced herself as Safia, was the last living descendant of the sorceress who had cursed Amina's ancestor. "The curse was born of vengeance," Safia explained. "It was never meant to be undone. But I can sense that you are different from the others who came before you. Perhaps there is a way to break it, though the cost will be great." Amina listened intently as Safia explained the only way to break the curse. "You must perform a ritual," Safia said. A ritual that will require a great sacrifice. Amina's heart sank. She had already sacrificed so much. What kind of sacrifice? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Sophia's eyes darkened. You must sever your connection to the curse completely, she said. You must give up the beauty that draws men to you. Only then will the curse be lifted, and all those who have been enslaved by it will be freed. Amina felt a wave of despair wash over her. Her beauty had always been both a blessing and a curse. Could she really give it up? Amina spent the next few days in deep contemplation. She knew that breaking the curse was the right thing to do, but the thought of losing her beauty terrified her. Without it, who would she be? Would she still be the same person? The men who had been enslaved by the curse, including Omar and Idris, would be freed, but at what cost to herself? Omar, sensing her inner turmoil, tried to reassure her. You are more than your beauty, Amina, he said gently. You are strong, wise, and kind. Your true worth has nothing to do with your appearance. His words touched her, and for the first time, Amina realized that her beauty had been a cage all along. The curse had trapped her as much as it had trapped the men who desired her. With a heavy heart, Amina made her decision. She would go through with the ritual and sacrifice her beauty to free the men bound by the curse. Sophia prepared the ritual, instructing Amina on the steps she would need to follow. The temple was filled with the scent of incense, and the air hummed with magical energy. As the ritual began, Amina stood in the center of a circle drawn with ancient symbols. Sophia chanted in a language Amina did not understand, her voice rising and falling in a hypnotic rhythm. Amina closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the curse lifting from her body. She could feel her beauty fading, her scalp no longer smooth and shining. The transformation was painful, but Amina endured it, knowing it was the only way to break the curse. As the final words of the ritual were spoken, Amina felt a powerful surge of energy flow through her. The curse shattered, its hold on her and the men it had enslaved finally broken. Omar, who had been watching from the sidelines, fell to his knees, gasping for breath as the invisible chains that had bound him were released. Amina opened her eyes and saw her reflection in a nearby pool of water. She was no longer the radiant beauty she had once been, but she felt a sense of peace and freedom that she had never known before. The men who had been enslaved by the curse, including Idris, were freed from their bonds. They were no longer bound to her, and for the first time in centuries, the curse had been lifted. With the curse broken, Amina and Omar returned to Timbuktu, where the townspeople greeted them with astonishment. The once beautiful Amina was now an ordinary woman, her bald head no longer gleaming with a magical allure that had captivated so many. But Amina felt no regret. She had freed herself from the curse, and in doing so, she had also freed the men who had been trapped by it. Omar, though no longer enslaved by the curse, remained by her side. He had come to love Amina for who she truly was, not just for her beauty. Together, they began to rebuild their lives, free from the shadows of the past. Though many of the men enslaved by the curse had moved on with their lives, Idris, the warrior, could not forget Amina. Though no longer bound to her, he still felt a deep connection to her. He returned to Timbuktu, seeking her out. When he saw the new Amina, his heart ached for her. She was no longer the woman he had pursued with such reckless abandon, but he found himself drawn to her all the same. Amina, surprised by his return, welcomed him with open arms. She had come to see Idris not as a threat, but as a man who had been caught up in the same web of fate as she had. Together, they shared stories of their journeys, and a new friendship blossomed between them. As the months passed, Amina found herself adjusting to her new life. She was no longer the object of desire for every man in Timbuktu, but she discovered a new kind of freedom in her anonymity. She could walk through the market without being harassed, and she could live her life without the constant fear of the curse. Omar remained a loyal companion, and though their relationship had changed, Amina felt a deep bond with him that transcended physical attraction. They had been through so much together, and their shared experiences had forged an unbreakable connection. Together, they began to plan a future that was no longer dictated by the curse. Though Amina had broken the curse, its legacy still lingered in the memories of the people of Timbuktu. Stories of her beauty and the men who had been enslaved by it became legends, passed down from generation to generation. Some spoke of Amina as a cautionary tale, while others saw her as a symbol of strength and resilience. Amina, however, did not dwell on the past. She had learned to embrace her new life, and she was determined to live it to the fullest. She began to teach young girls in the village, passing on the lessons she had learned about inner strength and self-worth. Her beauty had once been her greatest weapon, but now she knew that her true power came from within. Just as Amina began to settle into her new life, a final test awaited her. A mysterious stranger arrived in Timbuktu, claiming to be a descendant of the sorceress who had originally placed the curse on Amina's family. The stranger, a young man named Malik, was determined to restore the curse and reclaim the power that had been lost. Amina, now wiser and stronger, confronted Malik with confidence. She refused to let him undo what she had fought so hard to achieve. The curse was a mistake, she told him. It destroyed lives, including my own. I will not allow it to continue. Malik, though powerful, was no match for Amina's determination. She had faced the darkness within herself and emerged victorious, and no one could take that from her. In the end, Malik relented, realizing that Amina's strength and resilience were more powerful than any curse. He left Timbuktu, vowing never to return. Amina, having faced her final challenge, finally felt at peace. The curse was behind her, and she was free to live her life on her own terms. Amina and Omar continued their journey together, not as master and servant, but as equals. They built a life filled with love, friendship, and mutual respect. Amina's beauty had once been her curse, but now she knew that her true worth lay in her heart, her wisdom, and her spirit. She had reclaimed her life, and for the first time, she was truly free. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Kindly share, subscribe, and hit the bell button for more stories like this.